They were just earphones nonetheless. Nothing would happen to the guy if I just took them. I mean, he wouldn't die or something because he'd lost his earphones, right? I tried to let go of the idea and to concentrate as much as possible on what I was reading at the time, but I couldn't. All that I could think about was my desire to try those amazing earphones. A few minutes later, the boy got up and went outside, probably to the bathroom. I took my chance and managed to put the earphones into my bag without anyone noticing. I'll use them for a little while and return them afterwards, I said to myself, to justify what I'd just done. But deep inside, I knew that there was no chance I was going to return them. The boy came back, maybe a couple of minutes later, but he didn't notice that his earphones were missing. I smiled. This was too easy. I tried to act normal for the next few minutes, and then I walked out of the library quietly, trying not to draw any attention to myself. Once I was outside, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I laughed my heart out, and the same unbelievable feeling that I'd felt a few days ago while eating my unpaid-for chocolate bar washed over me again. I used my music player on my way home, and I was right. The music was much better being played through those bright-colored earphones. And just like that, I'd discovered my new favorite hobby, and if I say so myself, I was pretty good at it. In addition to my chocolate bar and earphone adventures, I allowed myself to grab a keychain that belonged to my dad's friend when he'd come over for dinner, a brown lipstick that belonged to my aunt, our neighbor's baseball, which he used to play fetch with his dog, as well as my dad's black and silver lighter. I mean, I don't smoke, but I just took it because it had a beautiful shine to it. Different objects that belonged to other people piled up into a giant treasure trove. And even though most of the objects had absolutely no use to me, I still found it kind of exciting to have these things that other people treasured. Even at school, I found joy in all of this. Whenever I'd go to the toilet, I used to take the tiny new things that I'd managed to borrow throughout the day out of my bag and just stare at them for a little while. Then I'd put them back in my bag so that later I could add them to my ever-growing pile of treasure when I got back home. I used to hide my treasure in a big box in my closet, out of sight of my nanny and my dad, to avoid a barrage of annoying questions. I came out of the bathroom holding my bag cautiously, as I didn't want the tiny bottle of perfume that I'd recently borrowed to break. It was my trophy for the day. I took it out during the lunch break from a bag that belonged to a girl that attended the same class as me. I ran into my math teacher in the corridor, and I said hi to her. She answered back and asked me how I was doing, then asked me if I could help her move some papers of hers from her office to her car. I gladly accepted and walked along with her. I followed her to her private room. She told me that her car was parked in the schoolyard, and since it was pretty far away, she wouldn't be able to solely move all the papers by herself. The papers were neatly divided into 2 boxes that were put on her desk. The first thing that I noticed, though, was not the boxes, but rather the shiny gold pen that had a golden engraving on it. From a distance, I couldn't read what it said, as it was all the way on her desk. She carried one of the boxes with both hands and asked me to follow her. Once she turned her back, I grabbed the pen and hid it in my pocket, as if it was nothing. Then, I carried the other box with both hands and quickly followed her. I helped her load the boxes into the trunk of her car, said goodbye, and went home. I was in my room checking some of the things that I'd borrowed throughout the day and arranging them in my special box. I totally forgot about my teacher's gold pen, but I soon remembered it when I saw the little pencil case, which was full of pencils that I'd taken earlier from my weird classmate. I went to the chair on which I had carelessly laid my school dress and reached down to take the pen out of the pocket of the dress. I held it between my fingers for some time and stared at it for a while. It was finally time for me to know what the special golden engraving that was on the pen said. It turned out that it was nothing but a few meaningless words that were engraved by the manufacturer of the pen, like the model number, ink type, and such information. I removed the pen cap, but once I did, a small piece of paper that was carefully folded fell out of its cap. I was so curious to know what it was, so I picked it up from the ground and carefully unfolded it so it didn't get torn apart. There wasn't much written on the little piece of paper, nothing but 3 words that made my hands shake. "I know what you did," the paper said. The words were written in thin red ink. I felt an indescribable feeling of astonishment and doubt. Who would put that piece of paper inside of the pen cap? Who would leave that message inside of the teacher's pen like that? Maybe it was nothing but a coincidence. There was no way the teacher was directing that message at me. No one knew about what I was doing. I shook my head in a desperate attempt to keep away all the notions and thoughts that were racing through my mind. I put the pen cap back on the pen and put the pen inside the box with the rest of the other objects that I'd stolen. I was about to put the box back in the closet when I heard the words echoing in my mind again. But this time, it was my teacher's voice. "I know what you did." I felt suspicious, and the only explanation that I could think of at the time was that my teacher had caught me red-handed.